Hi, I'm Tori, and this is my new booktube channel, Fully Booked. Thanks for watching. This is my first video, so I figured I'd do the newbie intro tag that I've seen a lot of booktubers start with. And the first question is why I started this channel. I have always been a voracious reader, and I think in the wake of the pandemic, a lot more of my friends have been reading more regularly. And so it's kind of just brought back up that constant refrain of my life of people asking me, oh, what book do you recommend? Especially because I read in a lot of different genres. And so I usually can have a recommendation for anybody. I definitely buy books for friends and family for holidays, birthdays. I really am into the fact that I found out in Iceland that people always give a book for Christmas and then you spend most of the day reading. That's really cool. So I really just wanted to have another opportunity to recommend books to people and talk more about what I liked about books or didn't like about books. Maybe some of my friends who aren't as big into reading will appreciate that less social time is spent in this pursuit now. The second question are, what are some fun and unique things I can bring to BookTube? Like I said, I read in a lot of genres. I'm a big fan of science fiction and fantasy. I really like memoirs. It depends on the memoir, but I'm a fan of creative nonfiction. I'm kind of like a human encyclopedia, so learning things through books is always great to me. And then I also am a big fan of literary fiction too. And I even delve sometimes into things like romance and YA. I'm trying to get over some, honestly, internalized misogyny that tells me that's not valid use of time. So yeah, I feel like I can bring a cross-genre perspective. I also really go out of my way to find diversity in my bookshelf, especially now that I'm an adult. And so I think it's important for white readers to also be doing that work. So I read a lot of queer authors, a lot of black and brown authors, and I'm hoping that I can bring that into this channel too. I also am very detail oriented, so I think there's some depth that I can bring to the analysis and critique of some of my videos, my spoilery videos of going more in depth with certain books. Yeah. I think the next question is what I'm most excited for about this new channel, and I think just the opportunity to talk about books and hopefully have some connection with community in BookTube. Like I said, more of my friends are reading these days, and I do have a couple of book club type things I do with one or two people, but like I said, I read a lot of different stuff, and there's not always people I can talk to about the book I read. So I'm excited to have that opportunity to ask for recommendations from other people based on what I like, see what other people are thinking about books that I read. Yeah. The next question is, why do I love reading? I feel like it's pretty common for people to talk about escaping through books. Definitely something that draws me to fiction, especially fantasy and science fiction. And I think there's a deeper answer there about childhood, right? When I was really little, I would not be able to stop reading because I had a really hard time with the sleep schedule that our society is all pretty much encourages, and I always was staying up way later than I should be as a kid, and still have that problem. I'm a night owl. So my mom would come, she'd turn off the lights in my bedroom, and I'd like go in the closet, and then she'd come in an hour later and like turn off the closet light. And then I'd just be like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, and she'd find me like at midnight reading in the bathroom. Part of me wonders why she didn't just take the book away, but I guess I just probably would have read another book. So that, like, being like a late night person definitely is part of why I love reading, I think. It's like that thing I could do and like sort of escape into when everything's quiet and still. And then I moved around a lot in late elementary school, and that was when I like really started being a truly voracious reader. If you are familiar with the concept of accelerated reader points, I like, for every, I think, 100 that you got, you would get $1 at the book fair. And we just like didn't, my mom didn't give me money for the Scholastic's book fair, so like that was my way to get new books. Like, we go to the library, we don't buy books. And so I got really into taking like reading and taking accelerated reader tests, and I got like, I beat the record at my school or whatever in 5th grade, and had 1,000 points. I think like each Harry Potter book was probably like 20 points, and 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea was like the most points that I ever got for a single book. So yeah, I think that, you know, not really having a solid friend group once I moved, like that reading was the thing that brought me joy throughout the day. I would like sometimes read through lunch or recess, and like definitely it was like the reading girl over there. Now I'm like, how did I just like tune everything out and just read? I don't know, but that's definitely sort of the beginning of my love affair with reading. I like started reading really early, and so I was really excited about reading like so high above my grade when I was younger, which, to be honest, now I'm like, probably didn't really get that. Like 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea in 4th grade, like probably not fully absorbing that material. But yeah, the next question is like, what book or book series got you into reading? And so this is like a natural transition there. Like, my dad gave me his copies of the Lord of the Rings trilogy when I was 8, and I read those until I was like 16. I read them like every year in the wintertime, which is a lot. And then once the movies came out, like I kind of started focusing my attention there. So definitely Lord of the Rings. I remember being like, when this is maybe embarrassing, I don't remember how old I was when the first movie came out, but I remember just like laying on my bed and listening to the soundtrack and being like, oh, I wish I was riding a horse across the plains right now. It was not until later, I think, until I really like realized that like I was not very represented by those books. Eowyn is kind of like the only like badass woman character, and she's like pretty defined by how trapped she is in her society. But I grew up in a house full of boys. I had 2 brothers, 2 male cousins that were like very close, and so it was like it was hard for me to like understand what it meant that like I was not one of them. So yeah, Lord of the Rings, definitely. I definitely was a fan of Harry Potter. As I got older, like the writing style was really not for me, but the storytelling I was definitely into. My grandma would like send me the book every year, like the day it came out, and I would just like not come out of my room until I was done reading it. But I also was really into like Arthurian stuff. I think probably my favorite was the Merlin series, which is by T.A. Barron. One of many series for young adults that's focused on Arthurian legend, but definitely that was probably my favorite. The Dark is Rising series. That's Susan Cooper. A little bit darker. Also has some Arthurian legend lore in the background with the Holy Grail. And then Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, which I no longer recommend given some abuse uncovered by Bradley and her husband to their children. But yeah, so those are some of the books that really got me reading. I think that's probably a good enough synopsis of like every other early millennial, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I'll have to like maybe do a video specifically on what other books I was like really into when I was young. What questions would I ask my favorite booktuber is the next question. Yeah, I don't know. I think like these questions are good. I've really enjoyed watching other people's videos introducing themselves and like what they care about. Maybe just like what's the weird thing that you're into that's very specific that you like to read about. Like I have a couple because like I said, I'm like very encyclopedic. I like to like know all there is to know about weird things. So I like true crime. I don't know, there's not a lot of great, like well-written books about that, but that is kind of like an odd corner of my reading interest because it isn't really like I have no other interests that are like around that. It's just I happen to like true crime, and in a way that there's not a lot of other nonfiction related to that. I don't like cops, so that makes it kind of weird too. I'm mostly like a prison abolitionist, so I think that's like that's what makes it a weird thing I'm into. But I'll Be Gone in the Dark is like a perfect example of like what I like about that kind of subject matter. If anybody's familiar with that Michelle McNamara book that actually came out after she passed away. So yeah, like what's the weird thing that you're into that isn't really reflected throughout your overall reading tastes, but is like something you got into. The next question is, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? So I think the reason that I like have avoided kind of this medium, I really don't like seeing myself on video. With the pandemic, I think like it's toughened my skin a little bit to that because we were all spending so much time on Zoom, especially if you have an office job. So I've gotten used to it more. And I think that will still be a challenge for me, is like actually being like, oh, what am I doing right now? Let me video myself talking. I also sometimes struggle with like just listening to people talk. I don't know what it is, but like the podcasts that I actually like are very few and far between. For that reason, like there's just something about listening to people talk that I have weirdness about. I also have an auditory processing disorder, so I think maybe that plays in, but I don't really understand everything about that other than that when there's several competing noises, like my brain gets overstimulated. So I don't know what it is about that, but I think that is definitely an issue for me, is like wanting to prioritize spending time in front of a camera. But hopefully the more that I do it, the easier it'll get. And I have had so many friends like tell me, you should start a booktube channel, you should start a monthly book club, you should, try and get people to pay you to give them book recommendations, which honestly, like, seems hard. But yeah, I still think this will be like a good way for me to like express myself about the books I'm reading, and connect with other people who are reading similar stuff and get recommendations, and I'm excited. So thank you for watching. I would love if you would subscribe to my channel. I am working on a couple of videos and I hope to have one out a week. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, thanks.